Hey guys, so in this tutorial, we're going to look at how to use CSS preprocessors like Sass or less with Angular CLI. And if you already have a project running where you're just not using any preprocessors and you want to start using it, so how to configure it easily so that you can use these preprocessors. And welcome to techsith tutorials. Hey guys, also if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, you can do so by clicking on the subscribe button, and also you can click on this notification button so you can get the latest notification. So let's first start with Sass. Let's say if you want to create a brand new project where you want to use Sass as a preprocessor, you would do like this. So let's create a project using Angular CLI. So it's a ng new, and the name of the project is let's say ng5-sass, and you would have to use an extra parameter here, style equal to SCSS. So that's the file extension for Sass. I mean, it does have two extensions, either SCSS or SASS, which was old one. So I usually use SCSS. So when I do that, it will create a new project, where you would see it's already using SCSS as a default preprocessor. All right, so it has created a project. Now let's look at it, what it has changed to make it work with Sass. So the first thing we're going to do is this Angular CLI.json file. First thing you would notice, within this default property, you would have the style ext, which is SCSS. So it's set as this. Also, you would see that under the source file, instead of style.css, you would have now styles.scss. And within each component, so by default, when you create a project with Angular CLI, it creates one component, which is the app component. And usually it has app.component.css, but instead now you have app.component.scss. And also you would notice that app.component.ts, when you open it, the style URL has reference to app.component.scss instead of CSS. Notice these four things. So just in case if you have to change Sass to something else, you need to change all of those references. All right, so now let's add some code and make this work and see how it works. So first what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to app.component.html and move everything that the Angular CLI created in app component. And I'm going to create an h1 tag. And inside I would say this project is too sassy. All right. So the style.scss, which is under the source folder, is actually considered as a global Sass file. So here, whatever I put in here will be applied globally. So first thing I'm going to do, as you would know that you can create variables in Sass. So you can create a variable for like a color. So let's say for font color, I can say I'm going to use a simple color, let's say red. Usually I don't use red, blue. I mean, I use proper colors, but for this tutorial, it's easy to see these colors, instead of some code. And for the background color, I'm just gonna say blue. So the page is gonna look very ugly. And because it's global, I can have a body tag here. And this body tag would have color, which would be font color. So I can use this font color. And so the font color is gonna be a red, and background color, it's going to be this background color, which is blue. All right, so now let's save all of it and run the project. So I'm gonna run the project using Angular CLI. So ng serve dash dash open dash dash port. I'm gonna open in port 5000 because I have another project running on another port. All right, so it renders this blue background and ugly red fonts. All right, but the thing is, you don't want to have the variables and the styles in the same file. What you want to do is move this in a separate file so you can reuse it and import it in another Sass files if you want to. But I don't want them here under the source folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another folder called SCSS, and I'm going to move this Sass into SCSS. So now that I have it inside here, the reference that I had before inside the, where is that file? The Angular CLI JSON, here I have styles referred to this root folder inside the source. So instead now I have to say SCSS slash. So this change you have to make so that it's gonna look in this folder. Okay. So now that it's moved, we're gonna split into two files. So I'm going to create another file inside the Sass folder, underscore vars dot SCSS. Usually, if you create like a common Sass file that you can include in another Sass file, you want to use it underscore in front. So the preprocessor will already know how to work. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this two line and remove it from here. And I'm going to move it here. And inside the stars.scss, I need to now import it. So I would say import, and all I have to do is vars. Yeah, I don't have to use underscore here because it knows. I also don't have to use SCSS extension here because it knows. So all I have to do is this too, and it should work like a charm. The project is already running, compiled, and it works fine. All right, now what about the SCSS file within a particular component? The one that is outside inside the SCSS folder, it's actually global, applies to the entire project. But the one that is inside the app folder is a scoped CSS. And we're gonna look at how it scope and global works. But the scoped one, it only applies to the app component. It doesn't impact, it doesn't bleed into the rest of the project. So what I'm going to do is in the app component, I'm going to create another tag called h2 tag. In the app component.scss file, I'm going to import this var. It's used for common purpose. I can import it here. And the way I would do is import, and I can use tilde, which means the source folder. And I can say SCSS slash vars. Again, I don't have to use the SCSS or underscore here. So I have imported this vars, and I'm going to create another variable here. Dollar, let's say other color, I'm going to say, which is going to be FFF. Here I'm going to style the h2 tag, and I'm going to use color is the other color. All right, so now if I look at it, the compiled project, this is white here. Now let's look at how it actually scoped CSS really works. Right, so if I inspect this h2 tag, I can see that it has, the color is a white here, And if I click on the style here, here instead of saying just h2, it's adding some attribute. So it actually added, if I inspect this element, it added some attribute called ng content dash c0. Now this could be different for you because it's automatically generated. But what it does, it will reflect, this would reflect inside the scoped CSS, which was for app component. And so if I have another h2 element somewhere else that is outside this app component, it would not impact it. So that's why it's scoped. However, the one that was outside, that is actually global. And as you can see, there is no attribute or class or anything here. Again, there's much more to learn in terms of Sass, but this is not a Sass tutorial. This is how to use Sass with Angular, and which I've done it. So now let's move on to how to convert this project to a less project. First, let's say if you want to create a brand new project to use less with, you can simply do this just like we did with Sass. You can say ng new, name the project would be, let's say, an ng5 dash less, and you can provide style equal to less, and this should create a new project. But what we're going to do, instead of doing this, we're going to convert our current project, which is in Sass, into less project. So this way you can understand if you want to transform one to another. Pre-processing Angular CLI JSON at the end here, style ext, which is SCSS. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this property here. So this project would use less instead of Sass. And even if you're not interested in less, I think you should know this, because just in case if you have to change from one preprocessor to another. So the command is basically ng set, I'm gonna say defaults dot style ext is less. So this property here, I'm trying to set default style ext. When I run this, it changes it to less. But that's not the only thing you need to do. There are many other things you have to do so that it would be compatible with less. So again, if I go back to the Angular CLI.json, the first thing I want to do is here, instead of SCSS styles.SCSS, I'm just going to change this to less styles.less. Okay, and I'm going to change the name of the folder, and I need to also change the file extension. So rename each file, and this one too. I also need to change this file inside the app component.scss file. And again, the app component.ts still has a reference to app component SCSS, so I need to change that to also less. All right, but still the product won't work because I have the less here, but inside the format is still actually Sass. So I need to change this to @. Remember, less uses @ and not the $sign. So if I did this, it should work. And the styles here, I have to change the reference as well. And inside here, I had to also do this. All right, so hopefully that should be it. Now let's run the project, and hopefully it should work. I'm just gonna keep my fingers crossed. Usually there is something that is missing, you know. Oh yeah, so one more thing was inside this app component that SCSS. So instead I need less, and I think I might have to do the same thing. Well, here it works fine. So now I think it should work. hopefully. All right, so it is working. And again, let's say if I want to go back to pure CSS and don't want less or Sass preprocessor, I would have to do the same thing again. I would have to change the Angular CLI.json, and here default style ext, I have to change this to CSS, and then I have to make all the changes that I made for, when I moved from SCSS to less. Yeah, so it's quite painful, but there's no automatic way to do this, so you have to manually do it. But you need to make sure if it's a much larger project, it's quite a bit of change actually. And I'm going to upload this code to my GitHub site so you can actually look at it and play around with it. I might create an article on techsith.com so that some of the code here you can just copy and paste if you want to. And so more detail there, and I'll provide the links in the description so you can look at it. Hey guys, I hope you learned something from this tutorial, and if you did, please you can help three ways. You can either always like, subscribe, and provide a nice comment. You can support me on this site, Patreon, and you can translate this video. I'll provide a detail in the description. It's very easy. You can use Google Translate or something. And thank you.